Hi, this is Rubber Cheese, and today I'm going to change some tires. This video is intended for people that are considering doing their own tire changes at home rather than going to a shop, and for people looking to buy tools for others that are going to do their own tire changes. I'm going to change two tires in this video. When changing the first tire, I'm going to talk mostly about what I'm using, so the tools and equipment that I'm kind of showing right now. And when I change the second tire, I'm going to talk about what I'm doing and why, and what precautions need to be taken. Afterwards, I'm going to talk about the cost of these tools relative to shop costs that you're avoiding if you do it yourself. And you can jump between sections with the links below. I've got links to the products in the comment section, and I may receive commission if you buy through my links for your reference. Let's get started. First, we need a second set of tires mounted on rims. If you currently have a second set of tires that are just sort of loose, you'll need to get them mounted on a second set of rims for this video to be useful. As long as you're okay with steel rims for your winters, payback is fairly quick. And let's get going. It's really nice to have a soft surface to work on. A soft kneeler pad like this is really handy to have, but a cardboard box or a shop towel can also be used. So I've got this one here. This is a really soft one. It's intended to be used for this purpose. And this one here is actually marketed to be used for gardening, but they're all kind of the same. So let's stick this one down. Next, it's a good idea to use wheel chocks. I've got a foldable one here. It's pretty handy to have. You can also use, in the past I've used pieces of firewood or whatever just to chalk the wheels, basically to prevent the car from moving while you're doing these tire changes. So let's put this one in position. I'm on a slight decline in this direction, so I'm going to put this right here. It's a good idea to do the other one as well. Next, we need a jack to lift the tire off the ground. So I'm going to wheel this one over. There's a lot of different options for jacks. I recommend these low profile style. It's really nice to work with, much easier than other styles that are available. You can also use a scissor jack that's included with your vehicle, but I would really recommend keeping that just for emergencies. They're not easy to use, and they're not terribly durable. Now, depending on your vehicle and the jack points in it, you may need some other adapter to use with your jack. So my car, and I think most new cars, you jack on the pinch welds. And so I have this little adapter here that just connects to the pinch weld to allow us to jack without damaging anything. So let's get that set up now. So this one's got little magnets. I definitely recommend getting that style. And if you're buying one, get a bright color. It's really easy to forget these in position after you've done the work. So we'll pull our jack back. Whoops. And depending on your vehicle, you may also want to use jack stands. Now, I won't for my purposes, but if you're ever in a position where you may need to get under the vehicle, you're going to want to have jack stands just so that you're not totally relying on the jack itself to keep you safe. All right, and let's jack up the car. All right, so we got the wheel totally off the ground here. So the next step is removing the actual wheel nuts. So to do this, there's a bunch of different options at varying price points. You can use a breaker bar, a tire iron. Here's a 4-way tire iron, or you can use an impact wrench. You can buy a corded impact wrench like this, relatively inexpensive. But if you've already kind of invested in a battery set of tool batteries, a cordless impact is really, really nice to have. Note that there's different capacities. I would recommend getting one with a 1/2 inch, and that's good for at least 2 or 3 times the capacity of your recommended lug nut torque. This is a DeWalt 889B. It's good for 400 foot-pound, and it's never let me down. You'll also need a suitably sized socket to remove the nuts. And if you're going to buy something, be sure to buy impact rated stuff if you plan to use an impact. So you can buy sockets individually. I just bought a kit because each of our vehicles need a different size. But we're just going to pop this on here. There's nothing wrong with just using a breaker bar. It's a lot cheaper way to get started, but this is really convenient to have. All right, so let's get this tire off. Just going to adjust this a little bit. All right, and we'll just bring over the other tire. Now, just be aware, especially if you're putting on winter tires, they tend to be directional, so just make sure that you're putting the correct tire on the right side of the car. Now, before we do this, we should always make sure that the mating surfaces here and also on the back of the tire are all clear. And to do that, you want to use a wire brush. I got a big one and a small one. This car, everything's really good, but our other car, there's a good amount of corrosion that builds up between seasons, so you'll want to just scratch all that off. The other thing that I recommend doing is just going a single way over each stud, just to get any dirt or junk that's accumulated on here off, just so that it doesn't create problems when you're putting the new tire back on. Also, before doing that, I recommend wearing safety glasses. You should really always be wearing safety glasses, but you don't want to get that rust dust in your eye. So we'll get on the new tire. And then I like to just put all the lug nuts on by hand. And then I usually just hand tighten it using my socket. But what you could also do is use a 1/2 inch ratchet just to get these things a little bit more in place. We're going to talk about the torque wrench in a minute. I used to use my torque wrench to put these nuts on, but that's generally not recommended. It can affect the, I guess, long-term accuracy of it. So try to get these snugged up by hand before you use your torque wrench. So those are pretty well tight by hand. So what I'm going to do now is just lower the jack a little bit, just so that there's a slight contact between the ground. And then that way, when I'm doing this, I'm not tending to spin the tire. Okay, so now everything is pretty much snug up. We can pull out our torque wrench. All right, and with the torque wrench set to the correct torque, we are going to torque each wheel nut. All right, and we've gone around doing them all. And by the way, this is why I recommend using deep sockets. If you don't have a deep socket, the fender of your car may become a bit of a knuckle buster. So it is really nice having the deep socket here. All right, so we are going to drop the car back down now. And remember this. So once all the tires are installed, you may need to program your TPMS sensor. So that's the tire pressure monitoring system. So my car uses a tool that looks like this. Other cars may have different tools. And there's a bit of a relearn process. It takes probably 2 or 3 minutes. I've got a separate video on it for this particular car, but different manufacturers have different processes. The other thing, you'll want to ensure that you have the proper tire pressure in all of your tires. So it's really nice to have a full-size compressor, but there are some little battery-operated mini compressors that work well just for adding a few pounds, which is probably all you'll need between seasons. And if you don't want to buy anything, no problem. You can always go to a gas station and do it there. So this covers all of the stuff that you'll need for a typical tire change. Now let's do a step-by-step, assuming you've already got what I have for my next tire. And I'm going to talk about what I'm doing and also why. Before I start the step-by-step, I have to say, I'm not a mechanic or a certified tire installer, but have been doing this for over 20 years and wanted to point out some things to pay attention to during a tire swap. Always read your owner's manual and manuals for the tools you use. The steps I'm explaining are consistent with what's written in my vehicle's owner's manual. So 2 things to do before we start are check the owner's manual for the proper lug nut torque. So in my manual, that is on page 313. So it's 100 foot-pound. And I strongly recommend setting your torque wrench immediately, just so that if you had it set from a different vehicle, you don't do the wrong torque. So I've got that set already. Oops. At 110. All right, and the second thing to do while you've got your owner's manual out, if you haven't already done this recently, is check where your jack points are. So mine is showing sort of right here. And in my car, they are pinch weld style jack points. And so if you're going to use that, we'll use an adapter in this video. Also, make sure your car is on solid flat ground, as level as possible. And make sure that the front tires are pointed straight ahead. If you have them turned at all, it's going to make torquing at least one of your front wheels really annoying. So during your setup, I think it's a really good idea to lay out the tires and where you want to put them, especially when you have tires that are meant to rotate in a certain direction. So when you're driving forward, you want the rotation to be this way. Therefore, this tire is going to have to go on the passenger side of the vehicle. So we'll grab a driver's side tire to install right now. I prefer working in my driveway But if I'm doing tire swaps at night or when it's really cold or wet, I work in my garage. You also want to chock your wheels to ensure the vehicle doesn't roll. I like to chock both of the tires at the opposite axle that I'm jacking. My owner's manual for this car suggests chalking just the tire sort of diagonally across. So I'm going to do the rear left, and it's saying I should chalk the front right, both front and rear. And the other thing, just in general, wear safety glasses. There's one step in particular where this is something you're really going to want to do. So I usually just have them on the whole time, just in case something goes wrong. So let's start by chalking the front wheel. And I'm going to use this. And because I'm on a slight decline, I'm only going to chalk one side because I know it's not going to roll backwards. But if you're totally level, you may want to do front and rear. All right, and let's get going. So, got this to kneel on. Very nice. We can see the jack point right here. And I'm just going to put my adapter thing right here. Whoops. There we go. It's magnetic, really handy. And we can wheel the jack under. All right, and then let's get this jacked up. Now, when we're jacking it up, I want to have the tire just off the ground because I'm using just because I'm using an impact wrench. If you're using a breaker bar or something like that to brake, I would want to just get it started with the tire still in contact with the ground. All right, so make sure that you're in reverse mode and you've got the correct size socket. So I take it most of the way off. I don't fully take it off because sometimes the nuts get stuck in here. So, and doing this is star-shaped. So basically this one, this one, this one, this one, this one. I'm not sure how critical that is when removing tires, but that's definitely the recommendation during installs. And then I put my foot here just so that it doesn't fall off while I'm unscrewing these lug nuts. All right, and now we can take off the tire. And when you do that, you want to make sure that it's not scraping across the stud. That could probably damage your threads, and we'll move it out of the way. All right, while we've got the tire off, if there's any corrosion going on in here, you're going to want to scratch that off with a wire brush. This car is great. That's not really an issue for me. And same thing on your rims, especially if you got steel rims. Again, for my car, it's not really a problem. Or sorry, with these rims, it's not really a problem. And by the way, this is when you want to be wearing safety glasses because that rust, dust, you don't want that in your eye. All right. The last thing I like to do is just brush off each stud using the wire brush, just so that if there's any junk in here, you're not trying to screw the nuts onto that. Whoops. All right, and then once it's on, kind of hold it with your foot in your hand. And you can just put a couple of nuts on to hold it, and then you can straighten it out. Now, I like to screw in by hand as much as possible. We'll get it squared up. It's also nice, especially if you're using a deep impact or a deep socket, it's nice just to use the socket to do it. Now, I used to use this guy to tighten it up, but I've since learned that that's not optimal. It can cause it to lose accuracy over time. So what I do is I start off just tightening them down by hand. And then after that, I'm just going to use a regular socket. Just to get it snug but not tight. And all that's going to do is limit the amount of force I'm really doing. Or sorry, limit the amount of ratcheting that's going to really happen with this. So before I fully tighten it up, I'm going to just let the tire touch the ground. That's going to resist the natural twisting when I'm getting this all torqued up. And again, make sure that you have the correct torque set based on your owner's manual. So during this process, make sure you're doing a star pattern, so kind of skipping one. If you've got an even number of lug nuts, you're going to have to just make an adjustment for that. But as long as you've got an odd number, it's just sort of natural. And you go until you hear that click. Now, once they're all done, I like to go around one more time just to make sure that everything is good. All right, so we got all of them tightened up now. So we're going to let down our jack, put the car back on the ground. All right, pull it out and make sure that if you're using something like this, you remember to grab it. Obviously, if you've used a jack stand, because of the way you lift your car, make sure you jack up your car and remove the jack stand. Also, if you're using wheel chocks, which you should be, make sure you get those wheel chocks out before you move the car. I'm not going to for the purpose of this video, but I've definitely lost a couple wheel chocks after forgetting them and then running them over. So go around, do all your tires. Once they're done, there's a couple more things to do. So one of them is make sure that your tire's up to the correct pressure. Pressures are usually on a sticker in your door jamb. And so using a proper, like a big compressor is nice. I'm going to aim for 32 pounds. And so we're good to go. I find that my tires lose a few PSI, like 2 or 3 PSI during storage for the season. So not too bad. So we'll go around pressuring up all the tires. And then the last thing that you'll probably want to do on the car side of things is if you've got a tire pressure monitoring system, you may have to reprogram it. So for my car, I use this tool. There's a bit of a relearn procedure. It's pretty straightforward, but different manufacturers use different systems. So I have a separate video actually doing reprogramming the TPMS on this car, but look up your make model. It's likely a bit different than mine. So once we're done that, before we clean everything up, you want to take this and relieve most of the pressure. Now look in the manual for your unit. Mine says to store it at 20% of its maximum capacity. So you want to do that for storage just to keep it as accurate as possible. And I think that that largely covers doing a tire swap. The other thing that I just mentioned is usually I go for a drive around the block. I'll retorque all the tires. And then after between 50 and 100 miles, I do an additional retorque just to make sure that nothing's backed off at all. So that's pretty much what you want to do. So just a couple other things. I usually mark my tires just to show where they're from, front, left, mark them however you want. It'll remind you where they were. So if you want to do a rotation, you can do it that way. If you want to put them on the same spot, you can. And if they're directional tires, you can make sure that they're on the correct side of the car. So that's helpful. The other thing to mention is usually when my all-season tires have been out in the salt, I usually like to spray them off before I store them just to get it off. That'd be especially important if you've got steel wheels, but I still do it with mine. These tools aren't cheap, but still have a fairly quick payback compared to using a tire shop to do these swaps for you. Where I live, buying the items I discussed and kind of what's shown right now will cost around $450 plus tax. My local tire shop charges $68 to swap 4 tires on rims. As a result, the payback is 6.6 tire swaps, which is roughly 3.5 years if you have one car, or less than 2 years if you do swaps on 2 cars. Even if you buy nicer tools, the payback remains pretty good. I started doing tire swaps myself more because of convenience than anything. It saves the hassle of booking an appointment, loading the tires into the car, and hanging around while tires are being swapped. Doing it yourself provides way more flexibility, especially if you have an indoor space to work. Swapping tires usually takes me around half an hour per vehicle, plus maybe 15 or 20 minutes getting tires out of storage and putting them back. Expect to spend a little extra time the first few times you change tires. So overall, I hope this helps you understand what tools are needed to do your own tire swaps and provides you with a bit of confidence. Doing my own tire swaps has saved us tons of money over the years and allows me to do it on my own time. If you found this video helpful, please like and subscribe. Thanks.